Hi everyone. In this video I want to show another HDR function where you can use the fill light and details, where this is a different type of HDR that really is suitable for bringing out a lot of the low lights without touching the rest of the image. So you can see it's really brought out the low areas of the image without touching the rest of the image, and then I can use the blend curve again to make sure that it's only touching one part of the image, and so you can see it's really trying to keep to the low areas. But let me go ahead and bring that up a little bit, and then play with see what we can do with let's do a little bit of focus on that. The nice thing about the HDR and the blend curve is that when you do the focus, they can generally cause halos, but you can see we're not causing any halos here, and the reason is because the blend curve is preventing the halos from happening. And so let me go ahead and do that, and then what I can do is I can go ahead and do the smart light. And there is an aspect of the smart light that I don't think a lot of people realize, and that is with the shadows, I can actually do a backlight with the shadows. And what I can do is I can go ahead and use that to just bring out some of the light. So I can actually use it to create contrast, and that actually works out pretty well. And so I can do that, and then what I really want to do is I just want to add some color to the bottom, and then I'm just going to do it the quick and easy way. I could mask it and do all that, but I'm just going to go ahead and do that and use the undo brush, and then just go ahead and just put the color in there. And I think I want a more moody picture, so I'm going to go ahead and bring down the brightness on it, and so there we go there. And so you can see I've really been able to bring this out. I think I really want to maybe use the curves on this one to just, I'm really just trying to bring out these bushes without touching anything else. What I could do is I could go into the I just wanted to show this function, so I'm not going to really worry about that, but I can go ahead and bring down maybe the sky a little bit if I want to. And so the idea is that, and now what I'd like to see is with the original picture, see, I like the sky and I like this foreground, but I really feel like the buildings are too bright. And so what I can do is I can go to the original picture and undo it, and then just go ahead and put the buildings back the way they were. I think that looks just fine right there. And or maybe actually what I'd like to do is to just bring them back a little bit. I think that works fine. I feel like I really like to see the buildings to be a bit darker, and then maybe a little more contrast on that, and just to make it kind of moody. And so there you have it. There's a way to bring out all of the features in the darker areas without really affecting the rest of the image using the HDR details right here. So here's another example of how to use the HDR fill light and details, and this time emphasizing the details. The last one was really more about the fill light and how we can bring up the shadows, but there's also the and details part, and it's similar to this one that I showed in another video, but this is more of an HDR function to say that it looks like HDR and is meant to look like HDR to really kind of recover some stuff. So if I go in here and do some details, it looks very nice, but it you can see that it really starts to get those HDR details that maybe you want, maybe you don't. Where this one is more of a softer version of the same. It generally works on wanting to fill the light, and you can see that that's what it's doing there. And what you can do is with the blend curve is you can bring the highlights down, and then you can bring in the contrast and the shadows, and you can really start to get some nice definition out of it, so that you can like I said in the earlier part of the video, the focus works pretty well here, and so we can really start adjusting it. And so if we want to just stick to the highlights, we can definitely bring the the shadows out if we want to. But in this one, we kind of want to go the other way, but we want to balance it at the same time. And so what we can do is we can use this same function to see if we go too far, it doesn't look good, but we get just the right blend of the blend curve and the HDR, and then we can add some color if we want to, and that looks pretty nice, right? It really brought it down. And see what else we can do with it. And so it's just a matter of how we're playing with the controls and how we're blending what we do with the controls. Like, that's obviously too much, and so what we can do is we can back off a little bit, and so that way it doesn't really touch the highlights. It touches everything from the lowlights and above, and then we can bring down some of the highlights it is touching and get a nice picture there. And then so what I can do there is I can go ahead and do, say, just bring that down, and to me that looks pretty good, right? That's just a much darker version of it, and that shows you how you can use the HDR fill and details part of it to kind of manipulate the low levels without touching the highlights. And so it's good for filling the low lights, but it's also good for adding contrast in the low lights without really touching the highlights. And in fact, if you really look at it, it actually brought down a lot of the highlights and made them look more natural. It actually recovered some of the highlights, which is one of the great things about an HDR function. And then, as usual, we can play with the contrast, and then also with the but I think it's already fine. But if you really wanted to make it darker, you could go ahead and use the smart contrast. But I'm fine with it the way it is. I think it looks very nice. And let me go ahead and just bring that one up. And so that's another way to use it. Hopefully I'll come up with some more examples as time goes by. I'm sure I will. It's just it's been really nice for me to be able to finally show off a lot of these functions that were put into Sagelight 4, but I never really showed them off. And so it's really nice to be able to do that now. Anyway, so thanks for listening, and I will see you in the next video.